The crowd was beginning to gather along the avenue when Warren Miller stopped near the barricade, holding a folded flag tightly against his chest. He tried to line up behind one of the parade groups but was stopped, hearing the sharp voice of the coordinator. "You're not on the list, sir. You need to step off the avenue right now." He tried to explain, but another staff member waved him off impatiently toward the sidewalk. Warren lowered his eyes and slowly stepped back, clutching the weathered flag even tighter. What they didn't know was that, just moments later, that flag would be displayed the way it truly deserved, and no one would be able to stop it. Let's dive into this story. That morning, the city was just beginning to wake as the first barricades were set up along the main avenue. Police officers were placing metal fences, vans were unloading instruments for the marching bands, and loudspeakers were being tested with choppy bits of the national anthem. Flags already fluttered from the windows of nearby buildings. Residents came down with folding chairs, travel mugs, kids on their shoulders, dressed with red ribbons. It was a big parade, broadcast on TV, covered by radio, and featured on official social media accounts. Warren Miller had arrived before all of that. He walked with slow but steady steps, carrying a folded American flag in his arms. Old, thick fabric stitched by hand. He wore dark blue slacks, a neatly pressed white shirt, and a light jacket despite the heat. His faded cap had barely legible letters, U.S. Marines. His shoes were polished. Every part of his outfit seemed chosen with quiet reverence. Weeks earlier, Warren had submitted a request to march in the section reserved for Marine Corps veterans. He didn't want any speeches or attention. Just a short walk, carrying the flag he'd kept since 1971, since he left Vietnam. But no one ever replied to his request for a place in the Independence Day parade. Still, he couldn't stay home. He knew what that day meant. Just like everyone else gathered there, it meant something deep. And so there he was, alone, surrounded by the growing buzz of preparation. Cars were arriving, groups were forming into blocks, young volunteers were running back and forth. Warren spotted the veterans' gathering point. There was a small tent, some plastic chairs, and 3 lines forming along the avenue. Some veterans wore their old uniforms. Others had custom T-shirts with their former divisions or platoons. The crowd was beginning to fill the avenue when Warren Miller stopped near the edge of the barrier, holding the folded flag close to his chest. He stepped forward calmly and waited for the right moment. He tried to fall in behind one of the marching groups, but was stopped by a woman wearing an event badge. She looked to be around 40, dressed in staff uniform, holding a tablet in her hands. "Excuse me, sir. Do you have a wristband? Are you on the list of veterans marching today?" "I don't have a wristband," he said. She replied curtly, "Then you're not on the list. You need to step off the avenue right now." Warren explained that he had submitted the request weeks ago, online. His grandson helped him. He said he only wanted to carry the flag. She looked at her tablet, scrolled through the screen, and found nothing. "Your name's not here, and the marching order is already locked. I'm sorry, but you can't join the group." A second staff member, younger, overheard and walked over. He wore an earpiece and held a radio in his hand. "Is there a problem?" "He's not on the list," she said. The young man sighed, already glancing at the schedule taped to his wrist. "We really can't delay the lineup. Sorry, sir, but you can watch from the sidewalk like everyone else, okay?" Warren lowered his eyes and slowly stepped back, holding the aged flag even tighter. He looked one last time at the group and walked away. He made his way to the edge of the sidewalk and sat down slowly. He placed the flag on his lap, gently, hands steady, and he stayed there. All around him the rush continued. Musicians rehearsed quick notes. Someone tested the microphone on the main platform. Parents adjusted hats on their children. Red, white, and blue balloons were being handed out. Drones from the aerial broadcast team started to rise, capturing the growing crowd. But right there, on that thin line between the celebration and the forgotten, sat Warren Miller. In his youth, Warren had served in multiple reconnaissance missions in Saigon. He'd crossed jungles, ambushes, and long nights under enemy fire. He saved fellow soldiers, lost others. He was wounded, but survived, carrying scars on both body and soul. The flag he held had been given to him by one of his platoon brothers after a forced retreat during a night attack. It was the only thing they had left. Since then, he had never hung it, never displayed it. He folded it and kept it, out of respect and gratitude. Today, he just wanted to walk with it, to show it to the world for the first time. But instead, he sat on the cold concrete while the country prepared to celebrate freedom. The parade started right on time. In front of him, the blocks lined up. The crowd kept growing. At the edge of the sidewalk, Warren remained still. He couldn't bring himself to look at the parade. His eyes were fixed on the flag resting in his lap. As the groups marched past, the organizers moved quickly up and down the avenue, checking the schedule, rushing those who stopped to take selfies. The parade had to look perfect on camera. Out on the avenue, the applause grew louder. Families clapped as the military groups passed by. Media cameras panned around, searching for the best angles. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. And now, with great pride, the official car of this year's ceremony, carrying our guest of honor, General Derek Adams. Decorated veteran with decades of service, a black car rolled forward, passing the bleachers set up for officials. Inside, standing tall, was a man with neatly combed white hair, waving modestly. 3 medals gleamed on the chest of his uniform. The general scanned both sides of the street, returning the crowd's greetings, until something made him stop. He squinted slightly, as if trying to be sure of what he was seeing. In the middle of the crowd, he saw a man sitting on the sidewalk with a folded flag in his lap. Derek Adams didn't blink. He stood motionless for a few seconds. Then he leaned forward. "Stop the car." The driver hesitated. "Sir?" "Stop the car. Now." The organizers glanced at each other, confused. The announcer fell silent. The car slowed down and pulled over to the side of the avenue, halting the flow of the parade. One of the assistants ran up to the general. "What's going on?" Derek stepped out of the car, slowly but with determination. The crowd watched, puzzled. He crossed the white stripe on the avenue, stepped past the barrier, and approached the man sitting on the ground. Warren heard the footsteps, but didn't look right away. When he finally did, he saw the general standing before him. They stared at each other for a few moments. "Warren Miller?" The general's voice was steady but carried a visible trace of emotion. "I never thought I'd see the man who saved my life again." It took Warren a second to respond. "General, it's an honor to see you again." The general smiled faintly. His eyes were wet, but steady. "The honor is mine, Miller." Then he glanced down at the flag in Warren's lap and asked, "Why are you here and not over there with the others?" Warren took a deep breath. His eyes drifted down to the folded fabric. "I signed up weeks ago. I only wanted to march with the flag, but they said I wasn't on the list, that the schedule was full." The general stayed quiet. Then he looked up, firm, and pointed to the black car parked nearby. "Come with me." Warren hesitated, then looked down at the flag in his lap. His aged hand slowly began to unfold it. The fabric, now open, showed its wear, frayed corners, old stains. The crowd watched in silence. The cameras zoomed in on the 2 men. Warren stood up. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He had no badge. But he walked beside someone who never forgot to honor the man who once saved his life. The walk from the sidewalk to the avenue was slow, but powerful. The drums from the marching band kept playing in the background, but the energy had shifted. Eyes that once followed the shine of the floats were now fixed on a scene no one quite understood at first. A 4-star general walking beside an ordinary man. When the 2 reached the official car, the event coordinator rushed over, flustered. "General, this gentleman, he wasn't credentialed." Derek cut her off. "I know exactly who he is. This man dragged me for over 100 meters under enemy fire. I had shrapnel in my back and a collapsed lung. I thought I was going to die on that road, but he brought me back. Today he's riding by my side." Warren stepped into the car slowly. Derek followed right behind. The doors closed. The parade, which had come to a halt for nearly 10 minutes, started moving again. Warren sat still, the flag resting on his lap, eyes fixed on the horizon. Beside him, the general simply looked at him, with the expression of a man who carried a long-standing debt that was finally being honored. As the car moved forward through a wave of applause, two figures watched from the side, the parade coordinators. The younger one asked, "Is that the same man we turned away earlier?" "That's him. So now what?" "Now, we stay quiet, that's all." The car rolled slowly down the avenue. Warren leaned forward. With care, he began to unfold the flag on his lap, gently, like someone performing an act of reverence that can't be explained, only felt. When the flag was fully open, Warren stood up on the seat. He held it with both hands, lifting it high. Derek remained silent. Warren didn't say a word either, but the way he held that flag said everything. Many placed their hands over their hearts. Some looked around, trying to understand what they were witnessing. The next marching group hesitated. One of the decorated floats tapped the brakes to keep its distance. In that moment, the parade was no longer following a schedule. It was moving at the pace of one man's story, a man who had walked far and was finally seen. Atop the public library, a local news drone captured the scene in a wide shot. The official car, the uniformed general, and the man in a light jacket holding an old flag. Farther ahead, in the officials' stands, dignitaries rose to their feet. Some saluted, others simply watched in quiet admiration. The flag remained raised. Warren held it firmly, as if he were carrying a legacy woven into every thread. The car rolled into the final stretch of the parade. There was something in the air no one wanted to interrupt. Warren remained standing. The flag stretched out in front of him swayed gently in the avenue's breeze. His arms, though marked by age, did not shake, holding that piece of history steady. The car came to a slow stop in front of the main stage, and Warren, still standing, eyes fixed on the flag, took a deep breath, and then folded it once more. When he finished, he sat down, and gently rested the flag on his lap. After the official end of the parade, Derek was the first to step out of the car. Local officials greeted him, but he barely responded. Instead, he extended a hand to help Warren down. Together, they walked to the end of the avenue, where the crowd was beginning to thin. Children chased after balloons. Families packed up folding chairs. The last waves of applause still echoed between the tall buildings. Warren walked with short, steady steps, the folded flag resting carefully on his forearm. Derek walked beside him. Warren was the first to speak. "I didn't think I'd live to see a day like this." Derek nodded, eyes ahead. "Neither did I, but I'm glad I did." A faint smile curved the corner of Warren's mouth. The city was starting to pick up its pace again, but right there, in that quiet corner, between two men and a flag with a long past, time moved differently. Derek turned to him and placed a hand on Warren's shoulder. "It was an honor having you by my side today. Thank you for everything you did for me." Warren smiled with his eyes. He reached out his hand. "The honor was mine." The general shook it firmly, just like they had decades ago. Warren began walking in the opposite direction. The afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the tall buildings. He slowly descended the steps into the subway station. Once inside the train, he took a seat by the window. He ran his fingers along the old stitching of the flag. And for the first time in a long while, he closed his eyes gently, because on that day, beyond the celebration of such an important national holiday, everyone had seen that flag. To most, it was just one more among many, but for him, with every flutter in the wind, his memories had taken form, as if that flag had been waiting all this time for the moment it would finally be opened before a new world that needed to see it. If you enjoyed this story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next.